are very senior officers and are working with us on various aspects. So I thought I should request them to join this program and to get the benefit. They might also like to ask a couple of questions. If I orient you about this initiative, this platform where we are hosting you, this is a national level initiative of Government of India for having, I hope my voice is audible. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
So this is a national level initiative, the Independent Directors Data Bank, on which we are hosting you. And I could find your book on AI and the boards quite interesting. That was the connect point where the conversation started and we exchanged mails and conversations. This is a national level initiative where we have 31,000 plus board members on one platform. And the idea of this initiative is to build their capacities so that we can have more professional boards and we can have better independent directors to serve the Indian boards. This group again has many who are accomplished professionals in their respective areas, but yet to begin their board journey. So we are building their capacities, orienting them towards various nuances of board governance so that they could really contribute back to the corporate sector. So this is a brief introduction about our initiative. Now, I think it is 4, and we have about 335, as you can see the tally. 20 of my colleagues are here in this room attending to this program. So about 350 we have touched. I will briefly introduce you, Fernanda. So Ms. Fernanda, dear friends, a warm welcome and a great evening to you all. Thanks for showing your interest in our webinar and also sparing your time joining us. Fernanda is a leading expert in the field of sustainability-driven innovation and currently the CEO of Next Agent and Operations Director for the Boards Impact Forum. Boards Impact Forum is a not-for-profit advocacy body on various key aspects pertaining to the board. She is also part of the Climate Governance Initiative of World Economic Forum and a visiting professor at Stockholm School of Economics, affiliated with the House of Innovation and part of the Stockholm School of Entrepreneurship. She is a co-author of the book on AI leadership for boards, the future of corporate governance. If I introduce the second guest, Ms. Lislotte, she is a member of Global Governing Board of World Economic Forum's Climate Governance Initiative, and also the chair of the Nordic chapter of Boards Impact Forum. Additionally, she is serving on boards of 2 publicly listed and 2 private companies. In overall 15 years of her experience as chair and non-executive board of directors, she draws from her international executive roles at global technology and engineering firms from Europe, America, and India, and her previous board mandates at 10 private equity-owned and publicly listed entities. She will definitely be bringing up the learnings. The profile is detailed. I have just tried to confine it to the key aspects. Just excuse me if I forget to mention anything. Then the third colleague who has joined the guest for today's expert discussion, Ms. Robin Tigland. She is a professor of strategy and management of digitalization in the entrepreneurship and strategy division. Robin is a fellow of Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences, member of the Productivity Commission for Sweden's Ministry of Finance, and board member as well with a Swedish leading company in air traffic control for civil and military aviation and related services. Robin is also an impact entrepreneur developing a blue circular economy in Portugal under the Spanish Ocean Watch initiative and startups. So my warm welcome to all the 3 honorable guests. And now I would like to just brief you about the design of this today's discussion. We can have our talk and discourse from three of you for about 45 to 50 minutes. And then we will open the floor for the guests, the members of our data bank who have joined, and the guests and colleagues who are with me at ILCA boardroom. So over to you, Fernando. I hope this scheme of design will work. 50 minutes maximum discourse, and then opening up for Q&A for about 15 to 30 minutes, as you might like to see this.
Perfect. Wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds very, very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a real honor to be here together with Liselotte and with Robin. So just to give you a bit of an overview of the topics that we are going to discuss today, we are going to start with a bit of an overview of the state of AI in the board's role nowadays with Robin Tegeland. And then I'm going to go a bit more in depth with some examples when it comes to both board guidance and board supervision. There are 3 areas each. And then we wrap up with some reflections from Liselotte Engstam on the board's role and competence for AI. And then, as was presented previously, we'll have about 15 minutes for discussion and for questions. It would be, from our side, it would be very helpful if you have any questions, you know, just write them down and then we take them all together in the end of the session. So just to get started, to give you a bit of an overview of the background, the reason why we are here. So we started a research project a few years back, and it was funded by Vinnova, which is a Swedish innovation agency. And our objective was really to identify, codify, disseminate best practices around the governance of AI. And we've done this project together with Combient. So it's a joint venture, a collaboration between the main Nordic businesses, as, for example, you probably know Ericsson or SKF, some example, Atlas Copco, etc. So all these big companies work together in Combient, work in terms of digitalization, and we did this research project together. Because things in AI move very fast, as you know, we are actually, and this is very exciting news, very recent, we are actually updating the book. We just got a grant from Internet Stiftelsen that we thank for their support. So we have here a link to our webpage. So feel free to also, if you have questions, to go there and contact us through our page. Since we were already introduced, without further ado, I want to hand over to Robin Tegeland that will take the lead on the first part. Please, Robin, take it away.
Robin, we can't hear you.
Could we maybe try to unmute Robin? I'm not sure I can do it. I can try. Unmute Robin. Request sent to unmute. I'm trying to make you presenter now.
I think we need the organizers to help us out. I don't think we can actually do it.
Yeah, we just, Robin wrote in the chat, it was just working. It's true, we tested it. We tested it and it was working. So I wonder if we can...
Do you get the request, Robin, to unmute yourself? And do you click that? Okay.
I've done it many times. Okay, here's a suggestion. Do you want to log in and log off and log in again, Robin? And maybe if it's okay with you, we just kind of start with your part again. Liselott, do you want to maybe take over?
Yeah. If
I
you
can
just
share
show me
again.
the charts again, I'll
Yeah.
take it over.
I'll share. Okay. Now you should be seeing them.
Okay, so I'll start and Robin can jump in as soon as she's back if you take the next chart. So basically, we're not going to go through the details of what is AI, but if we just say something very quickly, AI has been around for a long time. It was more towards the predictive, and it really needed specialists to actually work and get the applications up. The big change we now have is that in late 2022, there was a release of by OpenAI on ChatGPT. And that basically meant two different things. It meant that AI became a consumer tool. We can all use it in a very different way. So we can all become content creators, we can use it for reasoning, we can use it to create things. So that's one very big difference. And the other big difference is that with Gen AI, it doesn't just analyze and predict, it actually creates out of the data it uses. And obviously that took away only 3 days to get to 100 million, which is an enormous speed. I can see that we have Robin back, so let me see if she can get on. We still don't have your voice on, so see if you can get it on. I'll continue. Take the next chart meanwhile, and we see if we can get Robin on.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we just send her a request to unmute? Would that help? She said that the sound is still not working.
Okay, so my suggestion is that we'll ask the organizers to work on that, and we continue to present and try to help and get Robin's sound to work. So I think one of the big differences is that the generative AI, which is the new types of more creating AI, it's taking off in a lot of industries. It's taking off slightly uneven, and this is a very detailed chart, but I think one of the things that you can see where people are working to improve themselves. Some of the areas is really around, still around the data. And we're going to come back to why that is. But you can also see that some of the industries are a bit further ahead, or they might be a bit further ahead in some of the areas. And we normally say that financial services and healthcare and some of public sector is usually a bit more advanced compared to others. But of course, the tech sector with its own tech platforms is really the one driving the change, of course. If you take the next one. Are you getting any support here, Robin? I'll send you another request, you can see. So in terms of state of the progress, we can see already now that there's quite an advanced uptake in many of the industries, and the areas is very much when people are letting their own productivity grow. Otherwise, it's very much in the customer service area. And many organizations are experimenting with the different types of solutions and cases. And as you can see from the right-hand side, they're still mostly in trial error. and some of them are merging over to getting more of the cases into production. We will come back and share some cases. If you take the next one. So what we do know, however, is that the ones who are actually progressing, they reap the benefit. That's not necessarily true in a lot of tech transformations, but in this case it is. So the ones who are leading, they are increasing both on revenue, EBIT, and market share growth, and not the least in customer satisfaction. And we'll come back and share some more on that. Yeah, next one. And this is a balance, and this is a bit of survey that was done by the American board director group. And we just thought it would be good for you to see that it's not just us that shares now how important it is that boards engage in AI. And you will see this very similar to our areas, that it will impact a lot on the strategy and risk. You will have to rethink your committee responsibilities. More actually than board composition, we think that it's the education that is truly important, that everybody gets a good understanding of what this is and how it can be used. And of course, actually looking at how can you improve the data that you are getting, not just from management, but actually from the outside, so the sensing. So we take the next one. The key results from our research is actually shown in this chart. When we are getting into new territories of new transformations, we usually get a lot of focus on the supervision from us as boards. This is the time when it's as important for boards to guide the company on the operational capability as it is to supervise on the governance capability. And we will go through the 3+3 areas that we found are critical for boards. And not necessarily so that boards have been very good in handling prior to this, but now needs to update how they are going to work with it. And of course, this is all based on the platform of revisiting the board's own accountability, own role, own competence, and how the process and structure will work. So I think I'll actually leave it over to you to present the 3x3 areas, Fernanda. But one of the things that we have implemented, both in the book, but in many of the companies, is to actually make an assessment on where they are compared to how leading they are from the board in guiding and supervising. And interestingly enough, we now find that boards have to make a retake. So in 2020, when we did this, it was quite new. They had an ambition to get to operational by 2023. And they were already slightly more concerned about the risk and supervision area than the guidance area. What we're seeing now is, due to Gen AI, they have to restart. So now we're in a new type of plan and pilot. And we are now aiming to go quicker into operational. And we're now putting a more balanced approach to actually getting the AI capability up compared to also getting the supervision capability up. The next one. Back to you, Fernanda.
Thank you so much, Liselotte. So as Liselotte mentioned, what I will do now is try to go very quickly, just an overview of these areas. So let's start by looking at the board guidance, and then we will look at board supervision. So when it comes to board guidance, a very key element has to do with data strategy and management. So here is just some examples of the kind of questions that you, as a board director, should place to the management team, to the organization. For example, where's our data strategy? And is it adjusted to the business strategy? Do the two go hand in hand? And are we monitoring our internal data and the external data? So what is our internal data? What is it? Where is it? How are we governing it? And how are we integrating it with external data? As an example here, just to provoke you a bit, also who is training these models? Is it us internally? Where is the source of this training? And you can also look at data, and this is, I think, a very, very important point. Data as an asset. Data as an asset, and how can you monetize that asset? So how can you have data to enhance your customer experience, how you have data that you can sell, that you can collect insights, collaborate, etc. The second area has to do with innovation. And of course, innovation is kind of underlying to all these areas also in one way or another. But if we look at innovation into new solutions that you can use in your business, so what are the examples out there in terms of improving operations and offerings? And what are we learning from incremental innovation? When we are talking about innovation, the word learning is key. And here I have some examples. One of them is this marketplace for digital employees. I really love this example because Amelia is the name of my youngest daughter, so I always take this example. And it's basically having your digital employee. So it's not so much like a chatbot, but someone that can do account management, IT service desk, HR coordinator, everything online, for example. And later on, we are going to see some more examples on company assistants. And we will also go through the example of Klarna, which is a Swedish fintech. But just one example. There's so many interesting examples when it comes to innovation and AI out there. The next level, so we are looking into data, we're looking into innovation. Let's try to think about the ecosystem also. So it's understood that when we are talking about AI, no one organization can have all the capabilities. Many of organizations will have to partner up with other organizations in order to drive this. Same thing with sustainability, right? So there's really the emergence of thinking in an ecosystem, means thinking with partners, thinking with stakeholders. How can we together drive this? Here is an example from Unity. So they started as a gaming platform, so a video game engine. And they did a couple of very famous video games. And what has been really interesting is the transformation that they have done to not only focus in games, but also really supporting very, very different industries: automotive, transportation, architecture, engineering, even the US Armed Forces. So nowadays, if you own a construction company, you can have the real thing being built, but you can have a digital twin. And in that digital world, you can see, you can iterate, you can validate, you can prototype, you can really make sure that whatever you are doing is being kind of tested digitally first. So a very interesting example of this capability of managing a relation with someone, a provider, a partner that does this with you. And when you are handling these complex relations with partners, you also need to assess the partners and make sure that, what are the possibilities of making this ecosystem better, faster, etc. So these are some examples when it comes to data, innovation, and ecosystem capabilities that you need to develop within the organization. And this is a very important area because quite often we just focus on the supervision. And I'm going to give some examples of supervision now. We should also balance it with supervision. So one of the biggest discussion points when it comes to AI is, of course, the ethical considerations of AI, black box decision making, etc. What does black box decision making mean? Well, it means that you might have a certain outcome that you don't understand exactly where it comes from, right? So you say that it's within a black box. An example of that has been when it comes to the recruitment of employees, for example, where there's an AI doing kind of the selection screening of employees. And it's also interesting to as a board to understand you might be liable for that screening. You might be liable for the decisions, conclusions, or indications that that AI takes. So it's important to supervise, understand what are the AI applications in the organization, to know which ones they are. Quite often boards don't have a complete overview even of the applications, but also monitor those algorithms. Are they transparent? Are they being reviewed? And there to the right, you have an example of the Foundation Model Transparency Index. So it's something that you can go and check yourself and understand which one of these models, which one of these platforms is more transparent in which aspect. And of course, there's also some regulatory advancements. We have here, for example, the EU AI Act that is going to demands that AI is rated all the way from unacceptable risk to minimal risk. So this is also just some indications also for those of you who have operations in Europe. Moving forward, cybersecurity is of course a main concern. So we are both supervising the governance of the strategic assessment of cyber risks, and for that I wonder if you can see me. I just got an indication that maybe you cannot see me anymore.
We can see you and hear you. I think
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, good. I was just saying that it's both important the understanding the strategic assessment of cyber risk, and one of the things that the three of us have been talking a lot about is the importance of a scorecard when it comes to cybersecurity, so that the board has this understanding of the different aspects in the organization and where they are when it comes to cybersecurity, but also monitoring. So are the employees getting training? Is the organization getting tested? An example of testing an organization, you can see, for example, HackerOne. So you can, and you probably know this, but you can hire a hacker to try to hack you, as in to test your vulnerabilities, to see where in the organization a hacker would go in, and so that you prepare for that, right? So it's very much a dynamic capability, which means it's something that you have to continuously work on. It's through training, it's through assessment, it's to having this overview with a scorecard, is for continuously testing, etc. So we have talked about ethics, black box decision making. We're talking about cybersecurity. And I would like to also bring again the ecosystem perspective. So if you are working with partners and you are developing these with partners, then there's also a very important component of supervising what the partners are doing, right? So there's a level of trust that you need to work with stakeholders, with the rest of society. And it's also interesting to think about geopolitical issues in this context. And just to name a bit the most obvious two perspectives from the US or from China, where is your LLM, so your language, large language model being trained? And the biggest ones are Chinese. And okay, so what data does that mean that it was trained on, and etc. So we kind of need to create an understanding and make these decisions from the board from an informed position. And once you are doing this internally, again, you need to do it together with your partners. Where are your partners and what AI policies do they have? Because then you're not just responsible for yourself internally, but if you open to collaboration with partners, that could be also an aspect that you are going to be liable on. And it's really interesting to see where these models are being trained. I was trying to read a little bit in preparation for this meeting about LLMs in India, for example, and the difficulties or challenges with different languages and different dialects, but a lot of very exciting things happening there. So it's very interesting to understand also from an ecosystem perspective, where are our partners? Do we trust them? Where are they going? What is the strategy in terms of collaborating with them? And now I would like to hand over to you again, Liselotte, to talk a bit more about the board's role.
Thank you so much, Fernanda. And I just want to say we're very sorry that Robin ended up with some of these problems on the sound. Hopefully we are going to be able to share with you some of the data. So I'm now going to talk to you on the basic platform, so on the board's own roles. This is the time where we put the mirror up and look at us as board members. And I saw somebody asked about a survey. So we are actually going to share a survey together with the organizers to actually look at where are you as a group. This is done on an international group prior to this. So this is the data we have so far. And now you have again to remember that we basically, when you get new tech waves, you back a bit again. So even if you have progressed a lot with new, you are now back again. So this is the questions we've asked. We've asked many questions, but these are some of them that I thought would be a bit representative to our discussion today. So in terms of board education, still very little. You have to ask for it, you have to engage in it, and you have to go and find it yourself. Nothing to wait for. Even more actually disturbing is that we don't really know what our own company is in terms of majority. And the only way to get started with that is to actually ask for presentations, ask for assessments by the management, potentially bring in somebody else that helps you do assessment, and then make sure that you actually do the assessments yourself. But it's really critical that you start to understand where you are in order to actually be able to put in the correct actions. On the next one, did you now have a discussion on the board? What does this mean to us? What do we need to change? Do we need to educate ourselves? Do we need to bring in some new competencies? Do we need to add a committee? Do we need to have a new structure where we actually look at this at every other board meeting? What do we need to do? And that discussion is crucial, and you will have to have it very soon. And the last one is, of course, that this doesn't become a tech venture on the side, because then you will risk of not getting the benefits. So it really needs to be aligned and integrated with your business strategy, of course. But it does take engagement from yourselves and from your leadership team in order to get that done. So the other thing that we have found is that it's really good if we can get an initial action going. So don't wait to prepare everything. So in this initial action, we will take that on the next slide. What are the key things you should ask for? And we're not going to test the technology thing so far, but our recommendation is that you would go in, find a podcast which is named In Good Company. It's actually run by one of the most powerful persons in the world, because he's the CEO of the largest sovereign fund, an owner of 9,000 companies. He has made an interview of Sam Altman, which is the leader of OpenAI. And it's a very interesting interview where the Nikolai Tangen, the CEO of the sovereign fund, actually says, I have told my company that on an average, I expect at least 10% productivity improvement. And then he asks Sam, what do you think about that number? And you can hear Sam think, and he says, did you use ChatGPT to get to that number? No, I did not. Okay. How many of your people actually works in tech as part of your company? And after a while, they agree that it's about 20%. Then he says, then the number 10% is too low. You need to have a higher expectation. The only reason we're saying this is if our investors are now, even in their own business, putting out these requests in their own business, you can expect that they will start to discuss that with us as well. How have we asked about the productivity improvement? How have we asked about the areas? So one of the questions we think is important is to actually just try to find out how many have we given access to the more protected versions of Gen AI, and what training are we offer? When they are using it, how do we make sure they share their insights with each other? What kind of processes do we have for that? And have we actually given them a productivity improvement target? Then, of course, actually quite easily, you can look at putting out specific AI policies, or you can look at the policies you already have. In many cases, which was actually the case in my boards, we have put out AI policies, but actually we found that in most areas, we already were protected, but we now need to remind people. So one easy thing to remind about is, don't take our contracts and put them blank out into chat AI or something, but actually think about what are the protective data you can do things with. If you have an AI that's protected within the boundaries of the company, different situation. The other area, when you're now starting to get to this, is what is our hypothesis about the bigger value areas, and how can we start to get to that? And then following that, what are the competencies that we have in our leadership, that we have on our board, that what is the role going to be with us, so that you start that discussion quite early. And it's a fun, it's a tricky one, but it's a needed discussion. So let's move on.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
I went to the link anyway.
Understand. Let's not take that. Let's just go to the next one. Okay, so the next area is to really start to look into the strategizing and to make sure that you actually are part of prioritizing the bigger opportunities and the bigger risks, but also that you really think through what of these 3+3 areas do we need to put in place in our company that Fernanda just went through with you, and actually have a mindset of both short, mid, and long term. It's really, really hard, and many of you might have already tried that. If you start in the other end and you start with actually talking about general AI, which means that the AI is so intelligent it can do most human intellectual tasks, maybe not the physical ones, it's really hard to think out what the vision of the company is going to be. So it's really important at this stage to make a perspective of both short, mid, and long term. So if we take the next one, one of the ways that we have been working with this is really interesting, and we're going to get back to a case on that. So we have looked at what is the guidance for boards and what is the supervision, as we show you. Where are we on that? But in the first step, really look clearly on the productivity, the new revenue that you might generate, and the foundation you need to put in place. And for the next step, many companies are now having to rethink what's even the purpose. Are we even in this business? Should we even be in this business? How will our business change? And then get into what should be our target business scope. It might not necessarily be the same as it has been before. How will our business model be impacted, especially when we start to collaborate much more in ecosystems? And how can we govern those as much as we can to our benefit? So if you go to the next one. So this is a case of Klarna, which is a global payment and shopping service. And we just look, we know it's not available as a individual product, but you have more than 1,300 of your e-commerce companies that is using this in their global portray on how they work. So we just thought it would be interesting because they are quite a forerunner. So I just want to start with, we don't share this example because we think everything they have done is right. We share it because we want to share with you what really troublesome decisions you will have to get yourself into. So Klarna realized back last year, 2023, that their business model will be truly impacted. So they made a decision on the board level and with the CEO in lead that they will do an ambitious transition with usage of AI. And interestingly enough, they had a sharing, so most of their employees actually could use it. They looked at where would they actually find good value to start with. And one of the areas they looked at was dispute resolution. So actually when their customers were in dispute with the buyer, the providers of the service or product that they were buying, they ended up in that. And how could they make that improve? That's where they started. In less than a year, they have now really transformed very big parts of the company. They announced in March this year that they have managed to get 2/3 of the customer service interactions, 2.3 million inquiries, to be handled first month by AI. Not all of their customer service is handling by AI, but 2/3 were, and that was replacing the jobs of 700 agents. Now you might ask, is that a good thing? It certainly drives profit and productivity, and they have been very transparent about the impact AI will have on jobs. we're going to come back a bit, but what they did was to have a real focus on both productivity and revenue combined in order to get their key areas to be explored. They did input, of course, a lot on the foundation. This example is done in partnership with OpenAI. And the really interesting thing is how they really let the innovation out. This could not have been coming from a direction from the top. It was actually asked in a broader, but it was helped and prioritized together with the management and board. It made a huge cultural shift for them. So now the majority of their employees is actually using the tool. And they are finding that most useful the tool is actually for non-technical people. So they are using it in all of the development, but it seems to be even more useful for them in the non-technical areas. And the way that they are looking at the strategic scaling, they are already achieving a 25% reduction in the recurring of the inquiries. They have taken down the time that the customer has to ask and dispute from 9 minutes to 2 minutes. And it's already this year. They took the decision last year. This year, it's already taken them to give them a $40 million US improvement. The interesting thing is just a couple of days ago, they announced a new section, which I think is really interesting. And that is that they are now really focused on revenue per employee, which actually means they're really combining the both top and bottom line. And they are now taking a lot of the profit, not just out of the business, reinvesting it. And they are reinvesting it very much into the sustainability area to actually help customers to take a more sustainable decision when they are shopping. So don't just, we know you found this one, here are two slightly more sustainable options that you can choose from. So we just want to share this example. It takes courage, it takes ambition, but it's doable. And it will put us as boards in quite conflicting decisions about retraining, how do we handle our employees, who do we collaborate with. That is the types of decisions that will now end up on the board's role. So if we take the next one, the other thing we just wanted to point you to is the investors have their own corporate governance network, which is called ICGN, where all of the largest investors are. They just came out with a new guidance to the investors on how they should ask us as board members. What are we doing? And just the interesting thing you can see here is that they're starting to ask us with how have you ensured that you have sufficient knowledge on the board level? And how have you, if at all, integrated it into your strategy? It's going to be good for all of us to at least have a draft answer to those questions. So it's better that we start to work on it. Let's go to the next one. The final thing we just wanted to say is we think it's very important that you also think about that this is a leadership, real big transformation. And it will have a very big impact on all of your leaders as well as yourselves. So how will you think about AI augmented decisions? How will you make sure that they are ethical? What do you need to train them on? How do you make sure that they find a way to balance the guidance and supervision that we have talked a lot about? But not the least, how do you make sure now that you inspire them, create their innovation arena so that you actually take your fair share of this new business? The one thing that we already know is that most companies will have to adjust a bit around their purpose. And we know that this will take that you will have to be role models. And that's why we end up with some quotes from Mahatma Gandhi. Live as if you were to die tomorrow, learn as if you were to live forever, and be the change you wish to see in the world. I think we'll stop there and
Thank you.
then we can thank you and take any questions
Sure. For a very
or perspectives, viewpoints.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much for a wonderful discussion, and it's really interesting and insightful, especially at the time when the generative AI and the kind of impact it will possibly leave in different spheres of our professional engagements as well as the personal life. One aspect which is really a cause of concern and that we can witness from a number of researches or a number of consultations that have taken place across the globe. India, again, is not an exception to that. The way board operates and the way board strives with the help of board members to be more effective is something where AI can make a difference. And as you have concluded with this discourse, the major aspect, the focus area is to bring the change. And we have to very effectively and in a very focused manner need to use this tool. It should serve as a servant. It should not dictate as a master. In fact, internally, I was discussing with my colleagues on this aspect with whatever little knowledge that we have on this. The kind of usage which the data has in present days and the kind of challenges, because everybody is not a data analyst, everybody doesn't know how to arrange or rearrange the data. AI certainly is going to help us having better insights on multiple aspects within the body. Boards can function efficiently if neither they are overloaded with the information nor they have lack of information. They need to take informed decisions. And for that matter, on the one hand, information and data is crucial, and on the other, the insights which the data or the indications or the trends or the kind of predictability which the data power is certainly going to be useful for the board members. So thank you so much, all our three guest speakers, and your experience while working on this area will certainly drive way to develop our own appetite to learn more, because our discussion can ignite the interest towards this topic, and I'm sure most of us would like to follow this because this is the need of the hour. And that's the reason I could say I was very happy. Normally I find 400 approximately members who join, but today we touched to close to 600. That's again indicative of the fact how much interest the board members have on this aspect. Another thing, friends, I would like to mention with Ms. Lord, Fernanda, and Robin and the team, we are also conducting a survey on this aspect to understand as to what is the level of awareness and sensitization of boards towards this aspect and how much they are prepared for having better alignments towards it. We have circulated the survey, and I would request all those who are serving the boards to share their own reflections and observations so that we would bring something forward, specifically India-centric, for taking it forward. Now, I'm opening the house for the questions. It would be great if you can raise questions. I have certain raised hands, which I can see on this screen. Mr. Jain Desai, would you like to come in first? And I would like, in the interest of the whole group, because we are having a limited set of time, if we can be as brief and to the point as possible. Mr. Jain Desai. You can unmute yourself and come in. Mr. Mirza Ghulam Mohammed.
I wonder if the unmute is working since it didn't work for Robin. Maybe there was some problem with the unmuting, I wonder.
It's working. So, Mr. Mirza, Kiran.
No question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Robin.
Stick.
Now it's working. Great to hear you, Robin.
In and out and back and forth, but it clearly there's something with the mute function. It works and then it cuts out.
But now you're
Okay.
here.
Thank you, Professor.
Who's this?
Thank you, ladies, for a very enlightened presentation. My question is, Fernando has mentioned that there is a EU AI Act. Is it proposed or is it, enforced? And then you see, now this is an open platform, AI, and I feel that it's unbridled. We in India, do you think that we need a regulatory framework? Apart from ethics, do you think there is a requirement for a regulatory framework where we don't go beyond a point? Because we also keep seeing about deep fakes and videos, manipulating information and all that through AI. So what is your opinion about my question?
Super.
Yeah.
I can
You-
just quickly answer the timeline. So the EU AI Act came into law now in the 2nd of August, but the ban on AI systems with unacceptable risk will take place in February 2025. So soon, actually. But I can also post here a link in the chat.
I can just compliment. I think the discussion around regulation of AI is huge. It's
Yes.
It's even bigger in the US, I would say, since it's so unregulated. And there, actually, the Californian group is now trying to regulate where a lot of the actually LLMs are developed. So in terms of regulation, we think that it definitely plays a role. And the way that it's actually is outlined for EU, it's not that detailed that you might think. So most companies will not have these really bad areas where you can actually manipulate citizens and things like that. So most of us will have will not be in scope for many of the areas of the Act. So I think the way they have actually developed the Act is quite good. And I think that could be a role model for a lot of jurisdictions. I think the challenge with this is you need to let a bit of innovation go, but if you let it too far, it might be too late. And I think that's one of the real arguments for EU to be a bit more in the front. Do you want to comment, Robin?
Thank you. Kiran, would you like to comment? Kiran or Mr. Ravinda? Please unmute yourself.
I think we lost Robin again,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Hi, this is Ravinda here. Thank you for your detailed presentation. Quite nice over here. What I would like to understand is AI is obviously a very new field, and almost all the companies, leaving aside the tech companies, are struggling to empower their own employees on the AI. When it comes to the board, especially for non-tech companies, it becomes even more difficult for the board members to ask the right questions and understand the implication of AI tools and application being used by the partners. Do you have any insight how the companies are empowering their board members to have a detailed look on this area and add value in terms of AI adding value in the company and not being destructive or not being unethical for the company and businesses as a whole? So empowerment of board on AI. What are the practices being followed globally right now?
Right. So I think there's we need to separate what's actually empowered by the company and what's happening in the companies. So we have a lot of data that shows us that whether or not we're empowering people, they are using it. And they might, if they're, for instance, in financial services, they might not use it in the frame of the computer, but then they're using it on the side. So we can see that they are using it a lot, whether it's encouraged or not. We can also see that the companies who are a bit more in the front, they have encouraged usage, but also if you are more uncertain on that, and I think Fernanda showed some of that, many of the organizations has created their own LLMs so that they try to keep a protection around what data sips out or not. So you will have that for basically all of these consulting companies, all of the auditors, a lot of the tech companies, they have their own version so that they can ask and try things without that sipping out. But I mean, I sit on a number of listed companies. It's really tricky. I'll start with that. But one of the things that we know is you have to get your own hands dirty. It's very hard. And this is the first technology when you actually can use it. So one of the things that I actually encourage people to do, if you are on a listed company, not private, because then you might not have shared it in that same way. If you're on a listed company, your annual report is already out there. So I usually ask my board colleagues, have you taken our annual report and actually uploaded it and discussed with it and looked at it? And actually most people have not. But then I say, but you have to realize this is already out there. You already have 300 analysts that have done that with our annual report. So you can equally well do it and get yourself up to actually understand, does our annual report portray our strategy? Does our annual report have big holes in it that we're not talking about? Fantastic learning and a very easy way for a board member to start. I don't know if that's helped any on the question, but actually getting a bit more. And then of course we're providing board training, and now we're starting to see that before it was individual board members that came to the training. Now for the first time we have entire boards that starts to come to the board training to realize that this is something they really need to get their hands on.
And if
Any
I
more
might just,
comments, Fernanda?
if I just
Yeah.
make a compliment, because there were some comments in the chat about the balance between being an expert, being a data scientist, and being able to take care of this topic at board level. And one thing that we talk a lot about, I think, in our meetings, and that we discuss a lot is when you're sitting at the board, you should have an understanding of different topics that impact the business. So it's the same thing with AI. It's important that you know it, that you practice, that you explore it, but you shouldn't just be a data scientist, because you will also need to take decisions around sustainability, around operations, or so. I think you don't need to be a data scientist. You don't need to know how to code, how to program, but you really should be curious. You should really try to explore and play with it and try to understand it as much as possible. So a balance there between being able to contribute with your experience from management, from other disciplines of business, but also having that curiosity in order to be able to advance and not hold back the company.
Mr. Gurmeet Singh or Ms. Prema, are you?
This is Gurmeet. Thanks for the presentation. This is more a question to the IICA members. Do we have any such research which has been conducted on Indian companies? If yes, please share. And another question was, as far as the algorithm is concerned, who does the work on writing the algorithm within the company, or is it a resource from outside the company?
So I think this was a question to IICA.
And we will be also sharing a survey
So in
related
terms
to
of
this.
research, Gurmeet, the first part of your question, the research, so we have not conducted any research so far on usage of artificial intelligence and the boards. In fact, the survey which I was mentioning, we are doing with the 3 experts, and their organization is first ever in India. And to the best of my knowledge, no, not much has come out yet as far as Indian boards and AI-based applications are concerned. So this is the first thing. Second, I couldn't understand what algorithm are you talking about. If it is AI algorithm, I think the experts can advise. Like what I could understand, Gurdeep is asking, whenever the board or the board-related secretarial department has to use artificial intelligence, do we need to use some algorithm? And if yes, who will be developing it? Who will be instructing? Who will be really doing it? Do we need some specialized exercise? So your guidance on this.
Right. So I think I can just comment on the AI algorithms. So there's a fair number now, which is good. And there's one part of the LLMs, the large language models, that is proprietary, and there's one part that's open source. And the little framework that Fernanda shared on transparency, that's actually research that's done by Stanford. I think that's a great way to actually look which of these providers are progressing to actually be transparent in terms of how they work with different areas. The other complement I would say is that there's 2 things that happen. You will still have the traditional AI where a lot of people in your organizations will develop algorithms. What is happening now with the large language is that you basically develop algorithms on top of what exists. And then you are training your models so you can use it. And that is basically when I said all of these companies now start to have their internal models. They usually have a base, which might be from Microsoft or Google or OpenAI, and then they train it with their own data and their own algorithms. So that's what they now create their own versions that they can use.
Okay, thank you. Can we have Ms. Prema or Ms. Shraddha? Either of you?
Yeah, can I come in?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for a great presentation. It has really thrown up a lot of questions in my mind, especially looking at it from the point of view of India. The first question is it necessary for all the board members to be tech savvy? Because suddenly they are going to be thrown into an area which many of the board members into their 50s and 60s probably may find it a little difficult to cope with. So would it entail training and therefore some training costs? Would companies like to take up those training costs? And these training modules have to be customized depending upon whether you're going to work in the pharma company or in the electrical company or in a computer company. So would people want to take up this cost, or they would like to kind of keep it at the back burner because they think that, you know, if they're going to take up this cost, it may hit their bottom line? One. This is my first question.
Right.
So the customization and everything. Secondly, I think it's a great opportunity for us to allay the fears in many people who think that once AI is introduced, it is going to throw a lot of people out of job. As I see it, it is going to open up a lot of opportunities. And this is something that we need to convey to people. So the first fear is that probably it's going to be like,
Can we be crisp and short because
yeah, that's all. One is allaying the fears, and the first question that I asked was tech savviness training. Would people would be willing to take up the training costs, or would regulation have to be pushed down for them to do it?
Well, I can't say how it's in India. I can say how it's in part in India because I used to work on an Indian company. But what I can say is in terms of board composition, as in any of new things happening, the board needs to be knowledgeable around different areas. I think what I want to do is probably back to your thing that you're actually asking in terms of education, and that is actually, the interesting thing with Gen AI is that it's not so much tech as its usage. How do you use it? Where will it have its impact? You don't actually need to know all of the tech anymore. So now, if you look at impact in most companies, the broader impact is actually on the areas where there are non-tech people that can now create solutions. The same goes for the board members, obviously. Try to understand what it can be used for. Try your hands on a number of different areas, and you will be very much more knowledgeable on what it can do.
thank you. Mr. Vikram, would you like to comment? Please.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving such a good information. And I definitely understand that fine tuning is very, very important. And if the organization does not have enough data, then domain specific fine tuning would be required for the better outcome. And that's where the aggregation of the data will take place. And that's where India specific DPDP Act will also come into the place, which are almost all there in the privacy preservation key. So my question to primarily to the IICA is would be that would we recommend that down the line for an independent director, this role is also recommended as an to be hired as an independent director.
Yes. I didn't get your question, sir. Can you rephrase it?
As an independent director, I do see that there are roles specifically related to change agent to drive the ethics and governance aspect of it. Be an AI expert hiring through an independent director. Is that going to be recommended down the line?
No, it's very simple. See, independent directors are the change agents to the board, and they have a onerous responsibility not just to ensure ethics and integrity of the boards, but also contribute in a number of aspects which regulation as well as practices ask. I don't think the discussions have led us to a level where independent directors are considered to be an expert on generative AI. Is the question of creating consciousness within the boards and how effectively board can direct the management to use it so that much more useful and insightful data and information, much more systematized information and data would be used for the decision-making purposes. I believe this is my understanding. And independent directors, being the independent judge and expert in their own areas, can develop, depending upon suitability, their own resources and capacity, their own strengths, understanding not just artificial intelligence, but also all those strengths which are coming on the way to keep them abreast and useful for the companies to consider. And I believe this is again going to be a critical threshold when companies will consider your profiles and may like to have your. So I guess I have answered your question, sir. Thank you so much for a great question. Can I have Shraddha on for our question? Shraddha, would you like to come in, or Dr. Anurita Moitra? Dr. Moitra?
Yes, I am available. Dr. Moitra here. Yeah, thank you, IICA, for the organizing the beautiful program, insightful, and also appreciate the speakers who are learned and given us new insights. My question is, AI has come here today across the globe and is here to serve the corporate as well as other places. Now, as a board member, how can we ensure that the data, which is the base data, which is being used for this generating this visual AI tools, and then we are taking inference from that. If we take that as a service for the two from the tools, if the base data is not okay, or how diligent is used by today's board members, since you are already using it, what steps have you done, or how does this board members ensure that the base data are being done or taken up in a diligent manner? What are the steps? That's my question.
Shall I do a crack on that one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I'll say a couple of things. If you're using the open products, the situation is one. If your company has a proprietary version, that is absolutely where I would recommend for you to try to request access. So you can also use the safer version. So I would start with that. The other thing that I can tell you what I'm doing, but I'd start with kind of how I guide the company, and that is that when we are publishing things, of course, we also need to test it. And one of the things that you are doing is a special technique called guardrails, where you know that for different aspects, there might be more biased or more hallucinations. And then you can put in guardrails to make sure that you kind of stop that output. Or at least give a frame of what that outputs need to be checked against. On my own side, if I just take easy things, that would be more checking back on references, checking back on the data as that can be checked. So I wouldn't take data and say, I've asked it something and actually say, oh, it said 23% of something. I wouldn't use that. I would check that. I think the other thing that most people, actually not just board members, are doing wrong, we're using it as a search tool, as a Google tool. That is not how we're supposed to be using it. We need to give it a role. So we need to say, you are a futurist, or you are a technical expert on this and that. And then we start to interact with the questions. If we this is language, they just take words. That's how it works. If we ask a very open question, they don't know if they're going to find the answer in a futuristic film or actually out of the Bloomberg data. So they will take how it falls out more on an algorithmic base. So the more you can give it a role when you are using it and asking questions, the better you will be off to actually guard yourself.
If I may just compliment also Liselotte, I think that thinking about data, one can also think about almost like a child that is learning how to walk. As in, it's very difficult that you just start running immediately, right? You probably will not have the data available, organized, clean. A big problem is that the data is clean, is organized in a way that is actionable. So that's why it's better to get started, just like teaching the child how to walk, start with smaller steps, start practicing, start exploring, so that you can eventually run. The more you postpone to get started on that journey, you will get later on, you will be delayed, right? So it's better to get started, to start exploring, to start learning. Again, when we were talking about innovation, I was using the word learning. Okay, learning how to do this for your organization. What is the data that you have that you could use, and in which ways? And the sooner you start on this journey, hopefully the sooner you're going to be able to run and get up to speed with it. And then we were also talking, many questions coming up about kind of training and capabilities at the board, etc. And I would just really encourage you to see what kind of materials are out there. There's webinars, there are reports, there are online training, and you know, some you have to pay, but some resources are free. So I would encourage you to also just start exploring and be a bit curious, so that you slowly start to feel more comfortable and become more tech savvy. So to be a tech savvy board director, you don't need to be an expert, but you can still have that tech savviness mindset.
And I mean, data is the hardest one for most companies.
Yeah.
Most of us don't have data in order. Most of us have never governed data from the board level, and we need to improve on that.
Something which refers to future of governance, corporate governance. You spoke about EU AI Act, and I reckon that talks more on the ethical aspects. However, has any research been done to develop any clear accountability structures or frameworks, governance frameworks, to oversee that these AI initiatives, how they're implemented, and ensure that they deliver value without unintended consequences? Because as you rightly said, we need to start somewhere, and I fully agree with you that we need to make the first step rather than speak on ethical things. But has there been any research being done to develop some clear accountability structures or governance frameworks? Thank you.
Right, and we would encourage you to look at the entire area of what is called AI principles that companies are implementing, because a lot of the governance is included in those areas. What are the principles that we are governing ourselves after? And one of the things we can say on that is that there are some generic things on the AI governance, and there are some generic things on the AI principles. But you quite quickly become a bit more tailored toward your business. So the AI governance of a media company is quite different from the AI governance of a healthcare company. And that we can see starting to be reflected in their principles as well.
Okay, thank you. So, dear friends, again, I'm not in a position. I can see there are many friends who have questions, but in the interest of closing this on time, I would request, like, you can either place your questions in the chat box, or you can mail me. You all have my mail ID. So we'll be happily connecting you with the experts who will mail. Definitely you will get responses, because I can see the level of enthusiasm and passion and inquisitiveness towards this topic. So I'll get raised hands and hands. And I could see the chat boxes completely flooded with questions. So we would love to capture all these questions which are already in place, and others can mail me or chat box, and I hope the experts don't have a problem. We share the list of questions. I believe you'll be able to spare some time responding to the questions which are useful for the professionals. So with this, I would like to close this interesting discussion, and I'm happy that this discussion has initiated for a newer paradigm to be added in the minds of the board members and the discussions of the boards of public and private listed companies. There is a long way to go. As we will go, definitely the discipline will evolve. Principles and framework, the question of ethics and ethical usage will also evolve. The frameworks and principles will come in place, and definitely we will all together will become more and more conscious for using it in a way which is more value oriented. So with this, I would like to thank all the three experts who have taken out time. There was a difference of the time zones for both the countries. And also thank you to about 600 participants who joined us. Again, I would like to request, as you have stayed in 1.5 hours with us, if you can look at the survey that we have shared and can share your perspectives, your views, what you are observing within the boards that you are serving. It will definitely help us to bring some more knowledge products together. We'll be continuing with such power talks on AI as well as other relevant topics. But for now, I would like to close. Thank you all once again, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.